Hi there, and welcome to the presentation that is titled Exploring an Intervention to Support Higher Education Students with Referencing, Insights Gained. I am Dr. Nazarana Mather from the IIE's Varsity College, which is in South Africa. I will begin with an introduction to provide you with an overview of the current plagiarism context. Next, I will review some key research to provide a definition of plagiarism, what constitutes plagiarism, reasons for students plagiarizing, particularly during the COVID-19 lockdown. Following this, I will explain aspects of the study, including the purpose of the study, the research questions, the research method, data collection and analysis, and finally, I will present my research findings, and hopefully this will leave enough time for me to address any questions that you may have. Academic dishonesty is not a new problem for tertiary institutions. However, the rising availability of information sources which can now be easily accessed by student writers, as well as essay writing services heavily marketed towards tertiary level students, has led to an increase in discussions on this topic in both the media and academic journals. One way in which universities have attempted to monitor and control academic integrity is by using text matching software such as Turnitin or SaferSign. However, these software packages used to detect similarities between text submissions have been widely acknowledged as far from a perfect solution to solve the plagiarism plague. An increase in the number of plagiarism cases has been recorded since the shift to online learning during the COVID-19 lockdown. According to Perkins and others, there are many definitions of plagiarism. But the most comprehensive definition is that plagiarism is an act of submitting a document that belongs partially or completely to somebody else without due reference, and therefore misrepresents the effort that has been carried out by the submitting author. It is important to recognize that plagiarism can also occur unintentionally. And it is important to distinguish between major and minor plagiarism. Minor plagiarism is when a student uses the correct referencing technique, but this may be slightly inadequate or may contain formatting errors. Now, in contrast, major plagiarism constitutes little to no acknowledgement of the creator of the original source that the information was taken from. We can say that a submission has been plagiarized if the student has omitted to insert adequate, correctly formatted in-text references, if the submission has no bibliography, or if the sources in the bibliography are incorrectly formatted, and finally, if the submission has been poorly paraphrased. This would mean that the student has copied sections of text directly from the original source without using the correct referencing format for a quotation. Sometimes students attempt to paraphrase by just changing a few words from the original text. However, good paraphrasing is a true reflection of the original text in the student's own words, thus demonstrating the student's understanding of and engagement with the text. Now, there are many reasons why students plagiarize, and according to Perkins and others, whilst this has been the focus of much research, research into interventions to support students with intellectual integrity remains relatively uncharted. Selemani, Chawinga, and Dube cite the following reasons for students plagiarizing, and I have noted most of these with my own students. Students are often not good at managing their time and leave assessments for too late, which then puts them under pressure to meet deadlines. So they ignore referencing and focus on the content and making the submission time, which results in academic writing and correct referencing techniques being neglected. Oftentimes, students are let down by the schooling system, and the first time that they ever encounter in-text referencing and bibliography compilation is in their first year of study at a tertiary institution. Bridging this gap may take time for the student, and they do not realize the seriousness of violating the institution's intellectual integrity policies until they are on the receiving end of the penalty. Because of the high cost of tertiary fees, students are under pressure by their families to perform and to perform well. This pressure may lead to the student acting in an unethical manner. Finally, students might go undetected by some of their lecturers, so they do not correct or do not know what is correct. During the COVID-19 lockdown, tertiary institutions may have noticed an increase in the number of reported plagiarism cases. In a study conducted by Sforza into this phenomena, there was an increase in plagiarism cases in all 6 countries that were included in the study. Now, it must be noted that South Africa was not one of the countries in the study. Sforza and Verhoef and Kutzer suggest the following reasons for this increase during the COVID-19 lockdown. Poor time management. During the COVID-19 lockdown, students were overwhelmed and had unforeseen stress and other personal matters to deal with, such as family members falling ill, financial strain, loss of family members and friends, to name a few. Adding to this, many campus support interventions that were normally prioritized, such as plagiarism and referencing training, had to take a second seat as students needed to be trained to learn online. During the COVID-19 lockdown, assessment strategies also changed. So instead of writing sit-down tests and examinations with invigilators, students had to complete take-home assessments under no supervision. These assessments, unlike the sit-down ones, require referencing and paraphrasing, and this shift may have caused confusion among students, and this could possibly have led to unintentional academic dishonesty. Many students struggle with technology in terms of access, affordability, and use. In some areas of South Africa, electricity and internet connectivity are a concern. Not all students can afford to buy data and devices, especially during the lockdown when their breadwinners were not earning an income. And finally, not all students have the skills and knowledge to learn online without the face-to-face support of the lecturers and their peers. Due to the increase in major plagiarism cases and the limitations under which we were operating to conduct normal support initiatives, a need arose to find a creative way to reach students to provide support to them for intellectual integrity. A PowerPoint presentation for the lecturers to adapt and use as a referencing refresher to support their students with referencing before their submissions was designed. This presentation included a slide with the campus information specialist contact details and a link to a short video which was developed to support students with paraphrasing and referencing. Following this, information about what plagiarism is, what constitutes plagiarism and the need for referencing was provided. Thereafter, formatting, quotations, in-text referencing, and bibliographies were detailed. Now, here the lecturer could replace the information that was provided in the presentation with information from their prescribed material. So, in other words, this presentation that was given to the lecturers had templates, and the lecturer would insert their relevant information. For instance, they would replace the given examples of in-text references with authors and years of publication from the prescribed material relevant to their modules. Information about referencing for specific schools, such as how to reference the CAPS document for education students, was included. So lecturers from the other schools could just delete the information that was not relevant to them. Details about the plagiarism process and policy followed, and then finally, a slide was included for the lecturers to insert correctly formatted bibliographic entries for their prescribed material, so the students could copy and paste those bibliographies into their submissions and just add additional sources that they consulted when compiling the submission. And then the final slide in the presentation was a summary infographic to show students the key areas regarding copying and plagiarism, such as not copying directly from other sources and instead paraphrasing, in-text referencing, and including a bibliography. So that final slide was almost like a sum up infographic. In addition to this, a second resource was created, and this was a paraphrasing and referencing support PowerPoint presentation with voiceover. Now, the purpose of this resource was to serve as a resource that would be available to students to access as and when needed. In this way, they could identify specific areas that they needed support with and find those areas in the PowerPoint presentation without having to view the entire presentation. And downloading and viewing a PowerPoint presentation is not data heavy. The resource is more detailed than the referencing refresher that was made available and detailed on the previous slide. And this PowerPoint presentation with voiceover further served to support lecturers who needed development with referencing and plagiarism. This study sought to shed light on the usefulness of an intervention that was developed to support students with referencing and paraphrasing. It was hoped that students would be supported to avoid intellectual integrity contraventions, and the number of major plagiarism cases would be reduced. I will now discuss the research questions, findings, and conclusions. For this study, the following questions were addressed. What is the overall prevalence of plagiarism committed by students? Was the intervention successful in reducing the number of recorded major plagiarism cases? To conduct the study, the following process was followed. Resulting from an observation by the plagiarism officers about the high number of confirmed plagiarism cases, the need for an intervention arose. The institution's plagiarism policy, referencing guide, and existing plagiarism support material were collated and examined to inform the design of the new intervention material. What was also needed to be factored into the design of the intervention was the COVID-19 restrictions, which meant that students did not have access to the regular face-to-face support that they normally had on campus. It also meant that students could not access the library and other campus resources as and when needed. Once the material design was complete, it was sent to the academic team for review. Thereafter, it was shared with the lecturing team to upload onto the institution's learning management system for the students to access. The lecturers were asked to promote and encourage the use of the material to support students with plagiarism and referencing during the COVID-19 period. At the same time, the number of cases that were recorded by the plagiarism officers at the end of semester 1 in 2020 was analyzed. After a year of implementation, the number of recorded cases at the end of semester 1, 2021 was analyzed to determine if there had been an improvement after the intervention was implemented. At the end of semester 1 in 2020, there were 64 recorded major plagiarism cases, while at the end of 2021 semester 1, there were 171 cases. Consistent with the finding of other studies that were conducted about plagiarism trends during the COVID-19 period, these statistics reveal an increase in major plagiarism cases from 2020. So, although a decline in plagiarism cases after the implementation of the intervention was not observed, this phenomenon could be because of various contextual factors. It could simply be that the students did not access the intervention material, or that not all the lecturers made the material accessible to the students. On the other hand, the intervention may have contributed to the lecturer's understanding of plagiarism and the process involved, and it might have created more awareness amongst more lecturers, who then in turn reported more cases. Another contributing factor to this increase in plagiarism could be that the assessments that were written as sit-down, on-site assessments, such as tests and examinations, before COVID-19 lockdown, that did not require referencing, was subsequently being submitted online as assignments or summative assessments, and those required referencing. So this meant that the number of assessments that required referencing increased. So proportionately, possibly so did the number of student submissions that had major plagiarism concerns. So whilst an increase in the number of major plagiarism cases was recorded, the intervention has merit. It serves as a well-packaged quality support resource that students can access as and when needed to assist them with referencing and avoid plagiarism contraventions. It could also be useful for lecturers to integrate into their sessions and to use as a refresher for their students and themselves. And finally, the intervention proposed a starting point to thinking about alternate creative ways for student support compared with the traditional face-to-face workshop-style student support interventions. Going forward, the following recommendations are made. It is difficult to control what students and lecturers do. Therefore, an alternate way to promote and manage the implementation of the intervention is needed. The need for and importance of all lecturers incorporating the development of referencing skills in their modules must still be promoted. To this end, going forward, an audit could be conducted to check if the material was uploaded on the learning management system as required. Reports could possibly also be pulled to check if students accessed the material. And based on those reports, feedback from students and lecturers could be sought to explore their experiences of the intervention, and in so doing, improve and tailor the material to better suit their needs. In conclusion, a support intervention was designed to support students with referencing during an unusual, unprecedented time. As is the case with interventions, they may not always yield all the results as intended, but they do open windows for further exploration and improvement. These are the sources that were consulted to compile this presentation.